Welcome to Everything Wrong with Genesis. I'm your host, Jake Johnson, and I'm glad to be here this afternoon. How about yourselves? Are you guys ready to delve into a biblical foray that will span the dawn of the testimony of time? I have no idea what I'm saying. I'm just rambling, running and gunning like always. Who we got with us tonight? Got anybody here so far? Let's see. Let me look at the chat. Oh, hello, two people. I don't know what to do. I've never had so many people looking at me all at once. I feel kind of naked. I mean, I'm not wearing any pants, but other than that, yes, I am. Well, let's see. I got a pretty good show lined up for you tonight. We're going through episode 4 of the Friendly Atheists video about Genesis. Covers Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel, what happened when Cain and Abel grew up, and what happened henceforth thereafter. I'll keep it. So, it's been a lovely day today. Nice and overcast, not too hot, not too sunny. Got to ride the motorcycle a little today. A little evening stroll, always a good thing. Darlene, you here yet? We got 3 people. When I get to 5, I'll start the show. If you're in the chat, there's 4. Hello, 4 people. 1 more. Hey, come back here. I didn't leave when you got here. All right. Trying to wait till everybody shows up. I mean, it is 8 o'clock. That is the prescribed time. If you are here, say hello. Hey, Kevin, what's happening, buddy? Good to see you. Are you guys ready to be blown away? You know, I'm shooting just above blowing your skirt up, but I'll try for blown away. Usually Darlene's the first one in the chat. You beat her this time. You're doing good. Gold star for Kevin. April, what's happening? Glad to have you here. All right. You guys ready to get rocking and rolling? I'm ready. I'm up to my fighting weight, and I got my gloves on. My shoes are laced up, and I'm ready to go. Good to see you, Jake. Yes, I am ready to be blown away. All right, well, let's try. Them's tough standards to live up to, but I'll give it a shot. Say hello to the Friendly Atheists.
We've gotten through 3 chapters of the Bible. Time for some murder, but first, a lovemaking scene. Adam made love to his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. She said, "With the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man."
That's not exactly what she said. You need to read a real Bible, my friend, because that's not exactly what the Bible actually says. Let me get the book and show you what it actually says. This is an actual Bible. And it says, "And Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord." Lord in all caps. This word Lord is the same word that we get from the word Elohim, which is plural. It's also the same word. It means Baal, B-A-A-L. It also is the word we use to describe God Almighty. It's also the word we use to describe Jesus. So take from that what you will, but that's what she said. I have gotten a man from the Lord. Not with the Lord's help, I bear a son, or whatever you just said. We'll listen to it again in just a minute, just to make sure. And again, she bare Abel, his brother. It says, and she again bare his brother Abel. This word again means to continue. You see, this is the part your Bible leaves out. She bare Cain and again bared Abel. They were born at the same time. This is very important information to have, because if you don't know that, you don't understand that they're twins. Furthermore, you can't infer that they're paternal twins and had separate fathers, which will be made clear later on in the verse. So let's listen to what you said again.
We've gotten through 3 chapters of the Bible. Time for some murder, but first, a lovemaking scene. Adam made love to his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. She said, "With the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man." Later,
Now, do you see the difference between "with the help of the Lord" and "I have gotten a man from the Lord"? Those are two different things. He wasn't helping her. She received Cain as a gift from the Lord. That's two different things. One involves her, one does not.
gave birth to his brother Abel. Now Abel kept flocks and Cain worked the soil. Damn! Cain got this romantic love story. They made love and made him. Abel got nothing.
You see there? See there? There's where your confusion starts, because they were born at the same time, which means they both got the same story, which that is irrelevant either way. All it's doing is describing that they were born. It's not romantic at all. They had sex. You have to do that to have a baby. There's no other way.
He is obviously the Bible's first accident. Also, usually, writers save the sex scenes for later in the book, but the Bible practically opens up with it.
Well, this is not a novel, as you may well know. This is a textbook in many ways. It's a history book in other ways, and it's a spiritual book in even further ways. But first and foremost, it's a history book.
See? Genesis does refer to a Big Bang. Sorry, I'll shut this channel down.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
I wonder what they did with the fig leaves. Like, did they just move them aside? Did they get new ones? Why did
Did you forget the part in the last chapter where God gave them garments to wear when they were kicked out of the Garden of Eden? See, they're not in the Garden of Eden at this moment. You understand? They were kicked out. And God gave them clothing to wear, made of animal skins. You made a big deal about slaughtering animals, not realizing that animals were designed and created for that purpose.
Eve say, with the help of the Lord, she had a baby? What did God have to do with it?
Nothing, because that's not what she said. That's what your little kitty book says. The actual book says, I have gotten a child from the Lord. Not, he helped me.
He didn't poof Cain into existence like he did with Adam. And
Correct.
how's that for childhood for Cain and Abel? They were born and then they got put to work.
Well, not directly. I mean, they had to go through adolescence first. I mean, you realize that there is a passage of time happening here. The next thing is they're of age because they go to sacrifice, which is not something children do. So,
In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord, and Abel also brought an offering.
yeah. And in the process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering to the Lord. And Abel He also brought of the firstlings of his flock and the fat thereof, meaning that he brought the best of his flock, the firstlings. He brought the most fatted calf, the absolute best, without blemish, for the purposes of sacrifice. Now, I don't know if you are aware of what sacrifice is, but it's kind of like a biblical rock, paper, scissors. Sin is the rock, and the only thing that covers sin is the blood. You understand? I don't know why this is, but this is what God has deemed necessary to cover sin, to atone for sin. And yes, they are fully aware of sin, so they have to sacrifice. The fact that they are sacrificing lets you know they're fully aware of sin and are educated, or they wouldn't be knowing why they were sacrificing. See? But it's important that you understand that the sacrifice is for the blood to cover the sin. And Cain brought some vegetables and some weeds. You ever heard that old expression, you can't squeeze blood from a turnip? Well, that's why God did not like his sacrifice, because it wasn't what he was told to do. And later on, God will chastise him for this, and you'll see very clearly that Cain knew full well what he was supposed to do and chose not to.
Fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry.
And the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offering, but unto Cain and to his offering he had no respect. What did you say? Favor? I don't think favor and respect are the same things. And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell, and he got upset.
And his face was downcast. They always love the younger child more. At least God is relatable here.
Cain and Abel are the same age, so no.
And he gets a gift of fruit and he's furious. He wants the meat. Give him the good stuff. God won't be satisfied until he has a slaughtered baby animal in his mouth. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it."
Now, this verse is known as one of the most confusing verses in all the Bible, because not very many people actually see what it means, don't understand it. Let me read it from the actual Bible so you can get an idea of what it actually says. And the Lord said unto Cain, "Why art thou wroth? And why is thy countenance fallen? If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him." Now, what that means is, in context is king. We are talking about sacrifice. God says this is basically a chastisement. Let me translate it for you so you understand what God's doing here. Cain, why you got your lip poked out? Why are you over there belly aching? Why are you acting like a victim? You know full well that if you do right, if you do what I told you to do, then I will accept you regardless of who your father is. I will accept you if you do what you're told to do. If you make the right sacrifice for the right reason, I will accept it, just like I did with Abel's. But if you choose to do wrong willingly, eventually sin will overtake you, and you won't be able to counteract its effects on your life, and it will ultimately destroy you. It's desirous of you. It needs you. It wants you. This evil thing that man has brought into the world seeks you for every moment of your day. It wants to infiltrate you. It wants to cause you harm. It doesn't want you here. It doesn't like you because it is sinful. It is evil. And it tries every day to corrupt you, and every day it tries to tempt you. It can't actually touch you, but it can whisper in your ear and cause you to do bad things. The reason that exists is because of what Adam and Eve did in the garden, and as a result, Cain was born, the father of his father, the devil, and became the first murderer and liar. Now, in the next verse, you're going to see Cain do something that you wouldn't normally expect if God were standing before you, speaking to you. First thing he does is lie to him. The second thing he does is get sarcastic with him and snarky. And that's after he committed murder and covered it up, which is murder and conspiracy. I mean, he's just running the gambit of sins right now. But God is saying, why are you so upset? Why are you acting like a little baby? Don't you know that if you do what you're told, if you appeal to authority, you will be accepted? If you choose to go your own way and be an atheist because you just refuse to believe that there is a higher power than you, then sin will desire you. And even though you have one job, and that is to subdue and rule over that sin and keep it in check, it will overtake you and eventually destroy you.
Why is he even asking, why are you angry? He's God.
That's why.
He knows the answer. It
Yes.
doesn't even take God to answer the question.
You don't even know the answer to the question. You're talking in circles right now, being sarcastic yourself, and not even understanding what you're reading.
Cain gave God a gift, and God rejected it.
Cain gave God a lousy gift that was not the gift that God told him to give. And by the way, it's not a gift. It's a sacrifice. Sacrifices are supposed to be hard. They're supposed to be tormenting. The whole point in sacrificing is to gain from it. You gain by sacrifice. You give up to get a little. Give a little, get a little. The blood covers the sin, just like when Jesus died on the cross, his blood covered all sin. Well, before that, we had this other system called sacrifice. It's not a gift. People don't just give to God because they just feel like giving. They give to God to cover their sins. It's an atonement.
I'd be upset too. And God's message here is very confusing. What's a sin anyway? I mean, so far, the only sin we really know about is eating the wrong fruit.
That's not true. Just the fact that they are sacrificing lets you know that they're aware of all the sins, which is why they're sacrificing. I wonder, I see a wedding ring on your finger. I wonder if you have any children. If you do have any children, you probably already know what I'm going to tell you, but if you don't have any children yet, when you do have children, you're going to notice that the first thing they do when they start becoming autonomous, when they start moving around on their own, the very first thing they do is try to trick you. You ever caught a kid's hand in a cookie jar? You ever saw their reaction? Have you ever caught a kid doing something they weren't supposed to do, even though you had never said that to them verbally that they weren't supposed to do it, and then they just immediately started crying because they knew they were wrong and they felt guilty? Because you're born with innate knowledge of right and wrong. It's called morality. You only get morality from God. Atheists can't have morality because they don't believe there's a God. Therefore, the morality that they have, they think came out of thin air, which means that there is no sin. That's why atheism is wrong. God gives morality, and he puts it in you at birth. You know right from wrong. Even if you're never told, you know not to steal, you know not to murder, you know not to be jealous, you know not to be selfish. You know all those things. Covetous. Now, yes, it's true that later on in the book, Moses established the written law, which said these are the rules, don't break them. The Ten Commandments and the other laws among the judges and all that later on. But before that, though certain things were not sins at that moment, such as incest, and I'll get into that later, there was still right from wrong, and they were still doing bad. You see, Adam brought sin into the world, which means from the moment Adam and Eve did what they did, they became sinners, and all of their offspring became sinners, and the rest of the world became sinners because of the just being in proximity to Adam and Eve.
A pineapple. But slaughtering animals is apparently okay. You can't avoid a sin if you're not told which sins are sins.
And slaughtering animals is most certainly okay. The whole reason animals were created were to be slaughtered and to be used as beasts of burden. That's why they're here. There are some animals that you shouldn't do that to, such as scavengers, which have a job. Their job is to clean the earth and to keep it fresh. Anything with a split hoof, anything that chews the cud, anything with fins and scales, anything like that you don't eat. Anything like that you don't sacrifice. But of the fatted calf or of the fatted lamb, you may sacrifice because that's their reason for existence.
Now Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let's go out to the field." While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him.
He picked up a rock and struck him across the head with it and slaughtered him. Yes, he did. Why did he do that? He did that because of jealousy, because of his father the devil, because jealousy overtook him, because when he sacrificed to atone for his sins were not covered, because what he used as a sacrifice was not sufficient, and God did not accept it. And because of that, he became wroth and jealous. And he eventually let it get the better of him. His little green-eyed monsters took over, and he killed his brother in rage.
Oh, plot twist. Also, lazy writing.
Plot twist, I kind of saw this coming from the beginning.
Come on, people. Show, don't tell. Who had premeditated murder in the pool for God's first human death? I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say Cain did not rule over sin.
You're correct. He failed miserably. He had one job, and he failed.
Had one job. He failed. Actually, wait,
Isn't it amazing how close you are to it? You are so close you can almost see it. And somehow, you miss it. It's right in front of you, buddy. Just open your eyes. The truth is right there in front of you. And you know it. You're a smart guy. Just stop being so damn sarcastic and pay attention to what you're reading.
Take that back. God hasn't actually said murder is a sin yet, which means that's perfectly fine. So
murder is most definitely a sin.
Far, eating from the wrong tree is bad. Murder... We'll get to it eventually.
And no. You see, God issues a soul to every living thing on this earth that has the breath of life therein. When you murder someone in cold blood, there are different types of murder, by the way. There are criminal homicides, there are crimes of passion, there's laying in wait, there's many different degrees of murder. But the ones I'm talking about are doing it on purpose with the intent of murdering someone. You are in effect stealing something that does not belong to you, and whom it belongs to is the creator of the universe. Therefore, it's bad.
Think about the motive for this murder. Cain is jealous that God loves Abel's gift more than his.
He didn't love it, he accepted it. You see, there's a difference. You are attributing emotions to a sacrifice that aren't there. You don't sacrifice to God because we love him. We sacrifice to atone for the sin. God does not accept the sacrifice because he loves it. It's such a beautiful gift. He accepts it because it does the job of covering the sin.
That's it. Sky Daddy showed more affection to somebody else.
No. daddy. Sky, ground, water, outer space, inside, outside, underground, it doesn't matter. He's daddy all the way around.
By that logic, it's a miracle that we don't live in a world full of only child.
Yes.
How awkward would it have been if Abel prayed right before he was killed?
You think he didn't? Have you ever had your life threatened before? Don't you think you'd be praying? You better be. Let me tell you something, son. You better hope and you better pray when you're all alone and all your atheist friends can't see you. You better pray that no matter how sarcastic you become, no matter how glib and unexpressive and unbelieving and lack of the ability to follow authority that you delve into, you better pray God never stops believing in you. Because if he ever writes your name out of the book of life, you will know what suffering is and you will mourn that decision. You will regret it all the days of eternity, however short they may be for you.
God, I just gave you an offering. Help me out here? No? Nothing? I'm just getting stabbed now? That's it.
Again, free will, it sucks sometimes, but the alternative is worse.
I'm an atheist. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" "I don't know," he replied.
Lie. He lied. Who is the father of lies?
"Am I my brother's keeper?"
Sarcasm. Who is the father of sarcasm and snarkiness and bitterness general all around?
Why does God keep losing people?
Sin. He keeps losing people because of the devil and his interference. You see, God created a perfect world. He gave you free will. He gave you a nice planet and you screwed it up. Simple as that.
It's one thing when God ignores starving children in poor countries. I mean, there are billions of people in the world. He can't keep track of everyone.
Yes, he can. Let me tell you, there's a scripture in the Bible that's probably the most powerful and the saddest at the same time. And it encompasses exactly what you're talking about. And it's God speaking to his people. And he says, "I would have gathered you under my wings as a hen does to her chicks, but you would not." Meaning that no matter how many times he gives chance after chance after chance, no matter how many times he corrects you and swats your behind and tells you you're wrong and shows you how to do it right and provides a sacrifice and teaches you and provides fire on the mountain and fire in the bush, the 10 Commandments, the flood, over and over and over, he's tried to get you to just do right. And you just would not give in and do what you're supposed to do, what you were created to do. You had to do it your way. You had to go on your own. You had to be a rebel. And God has given you chance after chance after chance, and he keeps on doing it. 7 times 70 is what the number is. 7 is a very important number in the Bible, by the way. Numerology is a pretty important study. You should really look into it, because every time you question a number like 7 or 7 times 70, or something to that effect, there's a reason those numbers are being used. But you see, God loves his creation. He loves his people. He loves his children. Every one of them, just like you love your children, like I love mine. But they just will not do right. They keep falling for the devil. They keep going over the cliff. They keep running their ship right into the rocks. And he keeps picking them back up and saying, "Hey, I will give you a perfect life. All you got to do is follow these few simple little rules." I mean, he created the universe. That means he owns the place. That means he has the right to choose how it's ran. And you are a creation, not a creator. Therefore, you don't have any right to do whatever you want to do. You have a right to do what you're told. Just like when your mama told you to go cut the grass. You get up and you go do it. You don't sit there and whine and complain and say, "I'll do it tomorrow," or "I don't feel like it." You're not going to get an allowance if you don't get up and do your job.
But right now, he only has 4 people to watch, and he's apparently not paying attention to the kids,
Who told you he only had 4 people to watch? Did you not read the first pages of this book? You remember on day 6 when he created male and female alike all over the world? That's all the races. Adam and Eve were the first Adamic people, not the first people. They were people here for a while, long enough to build cities and propagate and spread out. Then Adam and Eve.
Any parent would tell you is just chaos waiting to happen. And yes, Cain has to be his brother's keeper. No one else in this story seems to take any responsibility.
Yes, we know that. That's why when Cain said that, he was being sarcastic to God. Yes, he's his brother's keeper. That's the job. You're supposed to look out for your brethren, blood or otherwise.
By the way, Cain just lied to God by saying he doesn't know where Abel is.
Who's the father of lies? And confusion, and sarcasm, and hatefulness, and murder, and jealousy.
Why didn't God just strike him down then and there?
Because, contrary to your belief, God does not get off on murder, and he loves his children, and he does not want to destroy them, and at this very moment, he's not ready to destroy them just yet. That's going to happen later on.
The Lord said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground."
Uncovered by a good sacrifice, his blood cries out from the ground. This is important. You know, the life is in the blood. The Bible says so. That's where the life is. That's where the containment of the breath of life is, in the blood. And he just spilled his brothers all over the ground, and the ground is opened up to receive it.
Now you...
Oh, a good and just man, righteous in the eyes of the Lord, who gave a good sacrifice and who was accepted by God. This man just destroyed that beautiful thing.
Were under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth. And with that, we have the first biblical layoff.
And thou art cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond thou shalt be in the earth. I'd say that God struck him pretty good. He just didn't kill him. And Cain said unto the Lord, My punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from the face of God. And from thy face I shall be hid, is what it said. I'm sorry. That just kind of came out. I can barely see these words. I'm blind. And I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And it shall come to pass that every one that finds me shall slay me. Now, why would that be? Could it be because everybody that finds him is taking vengeance out for Abel? Maybe God doesn't want a group of madmen seeking vengeance. Maybe he's going to spare Cain's life, though his days are cursed. So he marks him. Now, nobody can agree on what this means, the mark of Cain. Could be a physical mark, could be a spiritual mark, could be just a curse that only angels and God can see. Who knows what it is? It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that Cain will be marked all the days of his life. And because of that, no one will recognize him, and he'll go on throughout history without being recognized henceforth. He's invisible to the world. He goes on to have many children, and they become builders of cities. Eventually, Cain will die because a wall will fall on him. but it's going to take a long time, and they're going to do a lot of building before that.
I kind of want Cain to say, so what if I can't grow anything? I'll just eat from one of your trees.
Yeah, how's he going to do that? How's he going to get past that angel with the flaming sword that I would pay money to watch you try to do? Since you thought it would be so easy to just walk around him. I bet you need to go and look into what a smiting is.
Cain said to the Lord, my punishment is more than I can bear. Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me.
You see, just like when I told you, you better hope that God doesn't stop believing in you, lest he writes you out of the book of life. That would mean, if he did that, that you would be separated from God, which is a spiritual death. Cain has been separated from God, so in a sense, God did kill him spiritually, because they are no longer together. They're separate. And believe me when I tell you, you don't want that. You may think you do because you're all snarky and you can't tell that anything's got any more power than you do because you don't believe there's a higher one. But I promise you, keep a little bit back, because one day, and it ain't too far from now, that day, you're going to realize how wrong you are, and you're going to realize that that God is there, and you're going to want to be in his presence. I promise, because separation from God is torment that you can't imagine.
You just stabbed someone, and God's punishment was saying you don't.
I apologize for the hacking and coughing. As you can tell from my voice, I'm a bit strained today, and I can barely speak, so forgive me and look over the coughing. I do not have the you-know-what. I just have a bad throat.
Have to work anymore. That's a pretty sweet punishment.
God did not say he didn't have to work anymore. He said no matter how hard he worked, the ground would not yield forth its strength. Meaning that no matter how much you do, it ain't going to work. That you're going to have to scrounge and scrape and beg and steal and borrow just to survive. Because no matter what you do, the ground will not be blessed because of you.
Stop acting like your life is over. You're free now.
His life is over, for lack of a better word.
Go find new work. Maybe you can get hired as a guard in the Garden of Eden, since people just take fruit anytime they want.
Only one person took fruit anytime they wanted, and that was a metaphor for a sexual behavior. There is no fruit of immortality. That's not what that means. We've been through this already. You know better. Bad atheist. And by the way,
also, why is Cain afraid of death? Who else is wandering the earth just waiting to murder him?
Everyone, which is why he needed to be marked and hidden. Because everyone wanted to kill him after he slew Abel, a righteous and just man who did not deserve to die, by his brother's hand, over jealousy, over vegetables. You understand, what Cain did was really, really bad. And he will pay the price all the days of his life for it. So you think that because God didn't strike him dead that he didn't get any punishment at all? I'd be willing to bet that you're suffering a little bit from that punishment yourself. Have you tried to grow anything lately underground? How did it work out for you?
Haven't met any other characters, much less potential murderers. The only people who could murder him at this point are his parents. And being a restless wanderer on Earth isn't really a big deal, considering all of Earth at this point is like Eden and the land right around it. You're moving over to the next subdivision, okay? Calm down.
That's not exactly correct. Yes, at this point, all of the land masses of Earth are in one location, but it's a big land mass, and there's plenty. He could probably walk all the way across it, probably take his whole life, get from one side to the other. I don't know. It would take a long time for sure. And by the way, he's going to a place called Nod, which means to wander throughout. So I would say that's probably a desert land where like the Bedouins live now. It's probably that kind of an area. So, and he's going to take a wife there, which will tell you that there's other people here. So you seem to think that Adam and Eve are the only people on earth right now, and their children. But Cain, who is an adult, who's lived however long he's lived to this point, goes to a city that's already been built and populated with people and chooses a wife and has children with her. So people have been here a while.
But the Lord said to him, "Not so. Anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over." Then the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him.
Correct.
Wait. God was just carrying around this immortality mark and didn't even offer it to Abel?
Listen to me very carefully. The mark of Cain does not make him immortal. He dies not too long from now in perspective. From his current position in life, he doesn't live that much longer. A couple hundred years maybe. He is not immortal. He's hidden from everyone else. No one recognizes him. Whatever the mark is, keeps him safe from all of the people seeking vengeance against him, so that he can live out his days in torment for the crime he committed, the slaying of his own brother, his own flesh and blood.
Pet mother. And again, what's with the justice system here? Kill your brother, lose your job.
He lost a little more than his job. He lost everything.
Kill a killer, something 7 times worse.
Yeah.
Why 7?
Because 7 is a specific number in the Hebrew. I would suggest that you look up numerology, because each number used in the Bible has a specific meaning. You see, Hebrew is a particular kind of language. It's very unique in its formation, where every letter not only has a meaning, but it also has a numerical value. You see? And some of those words have 2 meanings or more. And some of those numerical values are 2 or more. It depends. This is what's known as an acrostic, which means that once it's written down and the value thereof is tallied, you cannot change it, or else the whole sentence falls apart. That's why we're able to have a complete retelling of the Bible, word for word, from thousands of years ago until now. Now, if you think this is not possible, we can even do that with English. Go find you a Freemason and ask him if you can pass down words from generation to generation for thousands of years and not change a single syllable. It is possible, but with Hebrew, it's especially hard to change, because if you change one jot or one tittle, the whole sentence means something completely different. The numerical values don't add up. The meanings of the words don't form the sentence. It has to be what it says, which is why when you learn it and repeat it, it's the same thing you just heard. It ain't like telephone, the game telephone, where you whisper in somebody's ear and they whisper in somebody else's ear, and by the time you get to the end of the line, the whole sentence has changed, the meaning and everything. It's not like that at all. It's more like this is a code that you can't break, and if you pass it down, it'll be exactly the same 10,000 years from now as it is right now. It's more like that.
That is so arbitrary. And what punishment is 7 times worse than whatever you would get for murder?
I don't think you want to find out. I really don't.
It's also illogical. God said,
How is that illogical? It's the very definition of logic.
as Cain's killer would suffer 7 times as much as he did, but Cain arguably didn't suffer. 7 times 0, either.
So you've got a man who can work until he's dead, and the ground will not provide its strength for him. It will not produce for him, no matter how much he sweats or toils. He's got everybody on earth seeking to murder him. He has to wear a mark that makes him invisible to his own family and everyone he's ever known or loved. He is separated from God. He's aware that the devil himself is his own father. And he murdered his brother, and he has to look himself in the mirror every day knowing that. And you think that he came away unscathed? You think he wasn't punished? I promise you, he was punished.
God is pulling a fast one over Cain, or God can't do basic math. Even if someone pops up,
God can not only do basic math, he can do math that will blow your brains apart. You can't even fathom what God is, let alone what he's capable of. I'd watch my mouth if I were you, and that's just me appealing to authority.
how would they know what the mark stands for? Does it say something on it? What's gonna happen if they stab him?
They won't. God has protected Cain from that very particular fate. However, eventually a big wall falls on him. You know, like those big blocks in Belbak or Lebanon? One of those things falls on him. So yeah, it sucked. But a person didn't get to kill him. Because again, God doesn't want a bunch of ravenous murderers on his hands. He wants to nip the murdering in the bud.
Is it like a shield? Do they get some sort of electrical shock? Is it an invisibility cloak?
I wish I knew, but the Bible doesn't explain it because it's not important to you. It's important to Cain. It's not important to you.
Someone explain how God works his magic. So Cain went
Like this.
out from the Lord's presence and lived in the land of Nod, east
The land of Nod, east of Eden. The word Nod means to wander therein, to meander around aimlessly, kind of like the Bedouins do now. In fact, Nod may be where the modern day Bedouins are, that area.
Eden. Cain made love to his wife, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch.
Cain may have been the first Bedouin.
Cain was then building a city, and he named it after his son Enoch. That's it?
That would be Enosh, by the way, not Enoch. It's Enosh. And yes, that's it. He built a city, and he built several other ones too. And then his sons built cities. You know that place I just mentioned, Belbak in Lebanon? Cain probably built that place, the original foundation. Now there's Greek and Roman buildings on top of that and other things. But the original foundation with the really, really, really big blocks, I mean, these were big old boys. They lived a long time. So, yeah, he probably built those places.
They made love again? Genesis is like the least kinky book in the Bible.
Not supposed to be kinky. But the very first thing God ever said to mankind of any verbal nature was have lots of sex and fill up the earth and subdue it. So there's a lot of baby making going on in this area, which is why incest is not a bad thing at this point. You see, DNA is like making a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. The more you go down the line, the weaker that DNA gets, and the more mixed it gets, and the more diverse it gets. But see, these people are right at the source of DNA. Their DNA is perfect, which means they could probably sleep with a sister or two and not have retarded children. But the further you get away from the original source, and the weaker the DNA gets, you see, when you sleep with a sibling, you're filling the baby up with the same DNA from both sides. There's no diversity, which means you end up with a baby that's missing some stuff. But back then, it was possible to get a full set of DNA from both parties. Henceforth, you could do that at one point. Also, you had to fill up the whole earth, which meant lots of babies had to be born. Lots of parenting had to be going on, which means lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of sex had to be happening from everywhere in order to achieve this. But after that, once the gene pool started shallowing up a bit, it became illegal and then taboo. It was not taboo. I mean, it was taboo before it was illegal, put it that way. You'll find that out later on.
And wait a minute, back up. Wife? What wife? Where did this wife come from? Adam and Eve.
Nod. You just read it. He went to another town, picked up a wife. No, it was not his sister. Could have been, but it wasn't.
Had 2 sons, and one just got married.
Yep.
And the writers are just glossing over where she came from. What if she's a sister?
How do you see that it glossed over it? It said plainly where she came from. And Cain went to Nod, eastward of Eden, and met his wife, and they knew each other and had children. He built a city outside of Nod.
It's a weird plot hole. This is either incest or there are people alive that Eve didn't give birth to, which...
And Bingo was his name, oh. Yes, there were lots of people on earth that Eve did not give birth to. At this point, there's only 2 people on earth that Eve gave birth to. That would be Cain and Seth.
Means she's not Eve, the mother of all creation.
Yes, she is. We covered this before. Listen to me. The whole world was destroyed by a flood, and the only people who survived the flood were on the ark. The women aboard the ark were all direct descendants of Eve, meaning that she was their grandmother. Now, in Hebrew, they don't talk about great-grandmothers and great-great-great-grandmothers. Anybody that's before them is their grandmother. No matter how far down the line you go, it's their grandmother or grandson or nephew or whatever. Right. So, Eve were the people on the ark's grandmother, which makes her the mother of all living things on earth, because everybody that came from those people are the people that are now on earth. All the rest of them were destroyed.
Take your pick. There are no good options. And did you hear how Cain went out of God's presence when he went to Nod?
No. He is separated from the face of God, not out of God's presence. He didn't walk away from God. God separated him from him, meaning that he is no longer with God. He is all alone in this world. He does not have a God to protect him or to pray to, or that will listen to his prayers, or that will be there when he needs him. He is separated from the presence of God. He didn't just storm out of the room. That's not what that means. Pay attention. It's much, much more dire than that.
Anyway, so far, the only sin we really know, just strike him down. The murderers, or there are people alive that Eve didn't give birth of God's presence when he went to Nod. There's no God in Nod, which means God isn't everywhere.
God is in Nod, and nobody ever said in the Bible that God was everywhere. God is wherever he needs to be. He probably can be everywhere, but that's not what God does. It's man's tradition that thinks God's in everything and everywhere all the time. And he may very well be, I don't know. But that's not what the Bible says. God has a presence. He even uses a vessel to get around in. So, he has a location.
Doesn't that defeat the whole purpose of God?
No.
To Enoch was born Irad, and Irad was the father of Mehujael, and Mehujael was the father of Methushael, and Methushael was the father of Lamech. Lamech married 2 women, one named Ada and the other Zillah. Ada gave birth to Jabal. He was the father of those who live in tents and raise livestock.
Kind of like the Bedouins. They live in tents and roam around. They're nomads. Yeah, there was a lot of people that came from Cain, by the way. A lot of very important people. The first person to ever make music came from Cain. The first person that was an artificer in metals and irons and smelting and things like that came from Cain. You see, Cain did have blessings to give the world. The world just no longer gave Cain its blessings.
Okay, for your sake, I'll skip over commentary on the genealogy. I just want to know where all these women are coming from.
That genealogy that you're skipping over.
And notice how they just quickly ran over how Lamech married 2 women at once.
Yeah.
Polygamy? A-okay in the Bible.
At one time, polygamy was okay. When Moses set forth the law, polygamy became a bad thing. You understand? It was set upon a man to have but one wife at that point. Before that, certain groups of people did take on more than one wife, many times over.
Bible. And we're told Jabal gave birth to people who lived in tents and raised livestock.
Oh, they also had concubines too, some of them, if they were well-to-do, if they had a lot of money. Not only did they have several wives, but they also had concubines, because in those days that was permissible. It became taboo later on, but in those days you had a job to do, fill up the earth, which meant you had to have lots of wives to, keep the business end of the stick up, if you know what I mean.
But I would love to know what the alternatives were. What other jobs and homes were available to them?
Anyone they could build, I would imagine. Alternative just means another choice. So if they couldn't live here, they could go over there and build a home. Why does that matter?
His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all who played stringed instruments and pipes.
Organs.
Zillah also had a son, Tubal-Cain, who forged all kinds of tools out of bronze and iron.
Artificer and metals and bronzing and smelting and iron. Yes.
Tubal-Cain's sister was Naamah. Tubal-Cain, already with the hyphenated names. Damn
Hipsters.
biblical hipsters. Lamech said to his wives, Ada and Zillah, listen to me. Wives of Lamech, hear my words. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for injuring me. If Cain is avenged 7 times, then Lamech 77 times.
Yep.
He's
Or 7 times 70. You see, Lamech is being a little bit snarky right here. He's being a little bit arrogant. He's saying, if Cain's vengeance was 7 times, then mine ought to be 7 times 70, because I'm that much more of a dude and I'm hurt. See, he didn't know whether he was mortally wounded or not. Truth be told, he probably had a paper cut or a little scratch, and he got pissy and killed a guy for it. And he was a little bit scared that God was going to judge him, which is why he was calling the 2 women to witness for him by telling them in third person what was going on.
speaking in the third person
Yes.
while complaining to his wives.
I wouldn't call it complaining.
Who's
Snarky,
he
yes.
killing anyway? Don't these people have anything else to do? And 77 times the punishment?
Yep.
Who made these rules?
Didn't you just hear him? Lamech did. He was the one that said it. That was not a rule that God made. That was Lamech talking out of his butt, basically.
77 times 0. Adam made love to his wife again, and she gave birth to a son and named him Seth.
Now, this again is different than the again that's between Cain and Abel. This isn't to continue. This is later on, right?
Saying, God has granted me another child in place of Abel, since
Notice this time she said, God has granted me, not capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D. That is a distinction. Take from that what you will, but there is a distinction. They were talking about two different people at that time.
Cain killed him. Seth also had a son, and he named him Enos. At that
Enosh.
time, people began to call on the name of the Lord. Whoa, we have to talk about the family dynamics here.
Before we do that, notice that after Seth is when they started calling on God again. You see, God had left them alone for a little while at this time. God was kind of miffed with his creation, so he stopped walking with men. See, at one time, God would come physically to men and be with them and hang out with them and talk to them. That's why it wasn't shocking when he spoke to Cain or Eve, why they didn't seem utterly flabbergasted that God was speaking to them, because it was an everyday occurrence and it wasn't unusual. But after that, he stopped. And then he stopped altogether, period, for the rest of history.
You don't tell the third child he's the replacement for the dead middle child.
They didn't tell the third child that he was a replacement for the dead middle child. She was talking to either Adam or God at that point, not the baby who couldn't understand whatever language they were speaking.
That's traumatic and weird and disrespectful.
Traumatic and weird if he heard it and understood it, which he did not.
Since it totally ignores Seth's individuality. And how old are Adam and Eve at
Seth is the guy who would eventually bear Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ came from the bloodline of Seth. I would say that his individuality is quite established. He is in no danger of being left out. So you can rest your little weary head on that one.
this point? We just went through the bloodline for like a dozen generations.
Yep.
And Adam and Eve are still banging?
Yep.
I mean, good for them. Also, ew. Also, how?
Why ew?
In the next chapter.
How? Get the picture? That's how. Ooh? That's one of the most beautiful things in the world, so I don't know what you're oohing about unless you go the other way, and, you know, let's be honest. Anyway, let me explain something to you. In the old days, men lived a lot longer than they live now. You see, now, after the flood, it is appointed to man to live on average 120 years, give or take. And in this period in time, it's take. So we get about 80 years if we're lucky. 70, 60 is more accurate. But in those days, they could live as long as 1,000 years. That was the lifespan of a human, average 1,000 years. The oldest man, just shy of 1,000 years. His name was Methuselah, and I believe he was 997 years old when he died. He was just shy, anyway, of 1,000 years. I don't know exact. I may be wrong on the number, but he was very close. So, if you live 1,000 years, you mature a lot slower than you do now. So, if Adam was 200 years old, he might appear to be a 17-year-old if you were looking at him, because his age is elongated. He lives longer. If he matured all at once and was an old man at 100, the rest of that 800 years would be him being an old feeble man. That doesn't make any sense at all, does it? So if you take a lifespan and stretch it out to the age appropriate, then you will notice that well into his 400 and 500 years, he could probably still get it up without using Viagra, if you know what I'm saying. So you don't have to worry about that either. I'm sure they got along just fine in that department.
After, we're going to see that Adam is 130 years old when Seth is born.
Yep.
I don't have a comment about that. I just want you to picture it, because
It could have been hot. You don't know. I mean, they might have been the best-looking people on Earth. I mean, they were definitely the smartest. They spoke every language in the world. Did you know that?
I had to. Moral of the story: God loves murder. God's creations love murder. There's no punishment.
God does not love murder. The only time God ever killed anybody was after he did everything humanly possible and godly possible to keep them from screwing up, and they just absolutely had to do it anyway, and they caused their death, not God. God is not a murderer. He doesn't kill people. People kill people. That's the whole reason for the sin being covered by the blood, to atone for that wicked nature of mankind that was appointed to man by the devil, not by God. God's not the father of murder. He's the father of life. Man brought sin into the world. Death did not bring man into the world like you believe. Evolution is not only stupid, but it's wrong.
Or murder, and Adam and Eve were taking their fig leaves off well past the age everything would have been working.
And
Now,
getting busy with it, and thank God for that. Would you like to be so lucky?
that's a miracle.
Yes.
We've gotten through 3 chapters.
And that's the end of video 4. And I'm ready to take questions, but before I do, Please like, subscribe, and share, and press the bell icon and hit all so that you get a notification when my videos come out. We're going to be doing this every week, and I need your help. Please support the ministry by going to paypal.me/JakeJohnsonBand. That's paypal.me/JakeJohnsonBand, and every little bit helps. There's no number. Whatever you can spare, if you can do it and you can get away with it and it doesn't hurt your pocketbook, give to things that you love or they go away. I'm working hard for you to bring you the truth as I can see it, without bias, without opinion, just trying to tell you what the Bible says. And that's something that very few people are doing these days, and we all could use some of that. So help your brother out, and let's get this ministry off the ground, shall we? Now, that being said, let's take some questions. Have we got anybody still here listening? Or am I all by myself in this? Looks like I got a few people here. Hey, 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 hey. Let's see, would I miss anything? Driving. Hey, 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 hey. Amen. All right. You go, Jake. Amen. Thank you. April, are you still with me? Has everybody left? What's going on? Have I been separated from my chat? Got any questions, April? Or comments? Or whatever? Bye-bye, Mr. Atheist. All right. You are here. You know, I did not record this whole video. I did that all without having a record of it. That sucks. Hey, Darlene. Sonny don't have time to listen, but I'm logged in. Well, what's wrong with Sonny? What's she doing? And tell her I said hello anyway. Sorry I missed her this week. You getting to it? Okay. Sweet. I'll just keep rambling on like I'm filling up the time here until you can ask one. Are you driving or something? I think that went well tonight. I feel like I was led to say some pretty good stuff. And by the way, I try to do, just so you understand the process of how I go about this, I rely on the Lord. The whole reason that I don't do chapter and verse and put up a bunch of pictures and stuff like that is because I want it to come right off the top of my head, almost as if I'm giving the answer as I'm speaking. So I don't put any thought into what I'm saying. I rely solely on past experience and the reading of the Bible, and I take each word and I allow God to show me the truth. And so hopefully it comes across that way. It also might come across a little rambly, but I'm trying. I'm getting good at this orator thing, but I'm not perfect at it yet. They have all the boys tonight? Okay, well tell her I said hello and I missed her tonight, and maybe we'll see her next week. Definitely see her Monday, if not. Thank you, April. You thought I did great, and I appreciate that. Kevin liked it? Excellent. Good. That's what I want to do. I want to provide entertainment and knowledge and hope that it comes across that way. I've been getting hammered by atheists, which is a good sign if they're trolling me, which means I'm striking a nerve somewhere. And they have been trolling me. They're not subscribing, though, so listen up, trolls and atheists. I will answer any question you give me all on my spare time and my free time, however long it takes. I will answer your questions, but you got to give back a little, buddy. Subscribe. I need those numbers. So help a brother out. If you want to ridicule me or question me, or if you want me to answer for what I make statements of, then hit that subscribe button so I can get a little coming my way for the work that I'm doing. April says, there was a word you used earlier, and dang it, I can't remember it. I'll have to rewind it. It was talking about sex and incest. What I said about sex and incest was that at one time, the gene pool was a lot closer to the source, and therefore incest could be achieved without having retarded children. No. Incest is the act of sleeping with somebody you're related to. It doesn't matter who. It didn't come from any actions of Cain. But Cain is a product of what's called parthenogenesis, which is where more than one sire provides a seed to a single mother, which happens in dogs all the time, but their gene pool is a lot smaller than ours is. But at one time, our gene pool was that small, which is why we could achieve it back then, and probably still can to some degree now, only it's not as noticeable because we have a lot less children than we used to. The average now is like 1.5 children per household. Back then, it was like you might have 30 or 40 children. So, but no, Cain had nothing to do with incest. Some people think that Cain married his sister because they don't understand that there were people here other than Adam and Eve. So they're trying to justify where the woman came from that he married. So they say it was his sister and that was incest. That's maybe what you're thinking. But on the sixth day, God created male and females of all kinds. All the races were created on the sixth day. And then he rested. But on the eighth day, he created Adam and Eve. Or he created Eve on the eighth day. And from her came the Adamic race. You see? So, but there were people and cities, and they had been out there long enough to build cities and spread out. So when Cain became of age, he left and went to another town and found a woman to marry. And why people have such a problem with that, I don't know, because it's right there in the Bible. It's very easy to see. For some reason, they just miss it, I guess. I've pointed it out several times already in this podcast, and it's like I've never said anything. Okay, let's see. The atheist is funny at times. However, he is disrespectful to God. Yes, he is. And I try to give him credit when he's funny. And he's also a very smart guy. I mean, he's no dummy. He writes for a very important, I think it's a website. I'm not real sure. It's either a website or a magazine. And, he's a smart guy. And that's why I chose him, because I knew he'd be a worthy opponent. And he was gracious enough to allow me to attack his words. So, there's nothing wrong with that. But he is disrespectful to God, and I call him out every time I hear it, because it's bad. The incest came from just Cain's people or what? Nope, I read that already. That's the word. Yes. What's the word? Okay, thank you. It was, parthenogenesis. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. You can look that up. Parthenogenesis. That's also what happened to Mary, by the way. Mary conceived a child without any sperm whatsoever. And that is possible also. The mark of Cain is confusing. I know Cain was cursed. He was sent to Nod. However, his children did not seem to bear the curse. Am I right? Correct. And neither did Cain, apparently, because he was quite a popular and prolific builder. He built a lot of the cities that are in ruins now today. I kind of think that he traveled around building all these pyramids that are all over the world. But I can't prove that. That's my opinion. And notice when I have an opinion, I'll state very emphatically, that's my opinion, because I can't prove it. Nobody really knows who built those things, but there are some common threads among them all, such as the little handbag that you see on all the drawings or carvings or reliefs. I kind of think that that's where those came from. But his children were also builders, and his children's children became people who contribute to society. Like one of his kids was an artificer in metals. He made smelting, and he did iron work, and he figured out how to, make alloys and things like that. So that's where we get ironwork from, and bronzing, and tin, and copper, and all that good stuff. Another one of his kids invented the musical instruments that we use today, or the predecessors to them. So he had the gift of music, which also comes from Satan, by the way. Satan was the leader of the choir in heaven. So that's where that talent comes from. You see, there's no such thing as a unique thought. You are given what's passed down to you from your parents. It comes through your DNA. Whatever your talent is, you can look back in your history and find some version of it, because that's where it came from, right? That's the propagation of a DNA memory, which is a thing. It sounds weird, but it is a thing, even though it's a little bit fringy. But yeah, his children seem to be blessed, even though they are descendants of the devil. But also his children are called the Kenites, and they became scribes later on in the Bible. And some of the Pharisees were Kenites. And they were blamed for a lot of bad stuff over the years, and things about confusing the word, and like the Library of Alexandria was burnt down by supposed Kenites. I don't know that that's true. That's also an opinion. But that's the word on the streets. They were involved in putting out bad translations of the Bible. The Bible that atheist uses is a product of their work. And once you know that, then you realize that it's the devil that has always sown confusion in the world. Without that, the word is perfectly clear and capable of being understood by everyone. But because of the confusion, it becomes difficult. And increasingly difficult to find the truth of a matter. What's Adamic race? Adamic means from Adam. Everyone from Jesus Christ to Adam are in the Adamic race. All of the main characters in the Bible are all part of one family, the Adamic family. From Adam, right? Moses, Noah, Jesus, David, all of those people, all of the main players, the main characters in the Bible are all related to each other. Now, there are other people in the world all the way around them, of all races and all nationalities. And God looked, and it was good. But then he created Adam for a specific purpose, to be the husbandman, the bringer of the seed. The seed is where it comes from Adam. I misspelled it. Adamic. Well, you spelled it close enough. Adamic. That's right. I got what you were saying. Cain was additionally cursed because he was an Alabama fan. This is called the second curse. Ha ha. He was definitely made from Alabama clay, so yeah. Yep. Okay. So to get it straight, Cain, his children, and his people, and anybody that came from Cain was destroyed in the flood. Yes, except for the ones that were saved on the ark. Remember, and this is confusing, but just sit back and pay attention to what I'm saying. 2 of every flesh and 7 of some, male and female, of all flesh, were brought on the ark. That includes 2 of every race, 7 of some, 2 of the others. That even includes some of the giants. That includes a couple of Kenites. That includes a couple of kangaroos. There were lots of people on the ark, but there were only 8 Adamic people on the ark. But everyone else, all of the corruption was wiped off the face of the earth, yes. Some of it survived because it flares back up after the flood. But for the most part, the wickedness that the devil sowed on the earth was destroyed by the flood. There was some really, really nasty things going on before the flood. The world before the flood was a strange place to be. There were hybrids on this earth in those days. They were taking forms of half man, half animal. They were doing magic. They were doing wicked things. They were passing babies through fires and worshiping false gods and calling on spells and incantations. It was a very, very bad place to be in those days, which is why it was destroyed. He looked on 2 whole cities and found only 1 human being worthy of saving out of the whole 2 cities. 2 big cities. Only 1 human being was worth saving out of all of them. And he is even questionable. We're going to get into that next week. His name was Lot, and we're going to talk a lot about Lot and his children. Okay, getting serious again. Where does it say that the wives of Noah's sons were descendants of Seth and not Cain? It doesn't say. And they very well could have been. However, at least one of them was from Seth. How do I know that? Because Jesus was born, and through Seth came Jesus. Thank you. You are certainly welcome. What is SEC curse? It was a joke above other things. I don't know what the letters stand for, but probably something to do with football. Adam was made from Georgia clay. That's right, buddy. That's right. That's somewhere in Genesis. Yeah. Hybrids? That was the Greek, right? Yes. And other things. All right. When God created the host, you know, where he says, let us make man in our image, he's talking to us. He created all the souls, all at once. All the angels, all the souls. I was created in my image. You were created in your image. Jesus was created in God's image. And so was Adam, by the way. However, for mankind, for our spirits, we have to have a flesh body to put that spirit in. It's either in this body or it's with God the Father who gave it. There is no in between. That's why there's no such thing as ghosts. Because when you die, your spirit instantly goes back to the Father who gave it. An angel also has to have a body when it comes to this earth. However, it does not matter what kind of body for an angel. It can even go into a clay dummy. It can go into a pig. It can go into a half man, half bull sewn together. It does not matter what kind of body for an angel. It can inhabit any form. But us, we can only inhabit the human form. Our spirits can only go in a flesh body. We can't be like cast out of our bodies and into swine. But an angel can. Which makes room for a whole host of weirdness which they were experimenting with in those days. They were doing some strange things in those days, some wicked things, things that were vastly against God. I mean, just downright evil stuff. Southeastern Conference. Yep, had something to do with football. Or, writer convention. I don't know. The Greeks don't want no freaks. That is an Eagles song. Can you play it Monday? What song is it? Is that the name of it? The Greeks Don't Want No Freaks? I don't think I've ever heard that song. I'll look it up, though. If I can play it, I certainly will. What's in it for me? No, I'm just kidding. If I can find it, I'll play it for you. Yeah. And also, the first commandment is thou shalt have no God before me. That ought to tell you that there were other things calling themselves gods in existence in those days. So all of the Norse mythology and all of the Greek mythology and all of the Hopi Indians mythology and all of the Aztecs mythologies, all those things are true. They're history. We are the only country that teaches that that stuff is myth. The countries that they're in origin from teach it as history because it happened. Now the stories are sensationalized so that you can remember them. They're dramatized. Like Greek mythology, they're drawn out in, pantheons and murals and such. And the stories are dramatized so that you can remember them and pass them on, kind of like telling a play or a movie. But the story's characters are real, and they did exist. They were the titans. They were the men of old, the men of renown. The giants that were in the earth in those days were the Greeks. Yeah. Yes, I know it's all evil. Yes, the whole world is evil. The song is called The Greeks Don't Want No Freaks. All right, well, I'll look it up. I've never heard it before, but if I can play it, I'll play it for you. If I can learn it, if I've got time to learn it, I'll play it for you. Obviously I can play it. Just, I have to listen to it. Ugh. I'll be glad when my throat clears up. I can barely talk today. Hanging on for dear life, buddy. Smoke another cigarette. Aunt Darlene, you got anything that's been bothering you about what we talked about today? Oh, Darlena, Darlena. Oh, I got something special for y'all Monday night, too, by the way. Were there mermaids, too? There could have been. There is some cave paintings that are questionable that I've seen in France and in Germany. And they depict what looks like mermaids. And there was a fish god. When what's his name was when Jonah was in the belly of the whale for 3 days because he was trying to get out of doing something God told him to do. God told him to go into a land and preach the word of God. And he did not want to go because those people were crazy. So he tried to escape. And he was thrown overboard and swallowed by a big fish. And then that fish carried him for 3 days. Now, he could have died in that fish and was resurrected when he was regurgitated onto land. I don't know how that all worked. I'm not suggesting he was alive for 3 days. However, in certain fish, it is possible. Not every fish, though. Only one kind. But 3 days later, he was spit up on land, and he was right there at the place he was told to go to, so he didn't get away. Now, that place, they worshipped a fish god there, which was a humanoid with fish legs that each one went into a fin. And there are statues and depictions of that fish god. And this is a very real people that very much so existed in those days. So I would assume that their god was real. And you could call that a mermaid, but in the sense that, like Ariel in that Disney movie, I don't think they're like that at all. And I don't think I don't think that kind of mermaid exists, but there is a fish being that did exist at one time, yes. April 1 on the mermaid machine at the casino last night. Damn, y'all went to a casino? Hey, send me some money. I want to go to a casino and play Keno. Keno at the casino. Not really. Anyway, also, when you get to the Isle of Crete, which is a good candidate for Atlantis, by the way, because it looks like it could have at one time had concentric rings before it blew up in the form of a volcano. And it also is in the right location, according to Plato, who is the only person who ever actually wrote about Atlantis. And a brief writing at that, so there's not a whole lot of description. There's actually 2 places on Earth that fit the bill, but only one of them is in the location where he said it was. Now, they had a thing there called a minotaur that was kept in a labyrinth, and the labyrinth has been found. So if the labyrinth existed, it stands to reason the minotaur did too. And what a minotaur is a half man, half bull. So yeah, there were some weird things going on before the flood. Yeah, come on, Kevin. He always talks too much. Huh? I missed something. Hold on, let me back up. Do not tell April Ariel was not a real person. She will have a breakdown. Yeah, come on, Kevin. He always talks too much. Are you saying I talk too much? Or are you saying Kevin talks too much? Well, I'm supposed to talk too much. It's kind of my job. You're at your wit's end? Ugh. I'll pray for all of y'all every day. So. Well, not every day, but a lot of days. You are in my prayers. Hope I'm in yours. All right. Well, it's been a good podcast. You guys got any more questions before I wrap it up? Kevin talks too much. I got it. Understood. I don't think he talks too much. I get the whole Ariel not being real thing would be devastating to certain young ladies. I understand that. Any woman that's that hot and naked would not be wearing seashells on her breastises. That's all I'm saying. But she probably does have crabs. Yeah, but it didn't work out so well for Babylon. But the gift of gab is a good thing if you're a lawyer. Be able to carry on a conversation without stuttering. That's probably a good quality to have in that line of work. It's kind of important in my line of work too, although I stutter all the time because I'm thinking more than I'm talking. You haven't met him yet. Just wait. Ha ha ha. I'm waiting. Sorry I missed most of it, but I was here. I'll listen later. Yes, ma'am. I'm glad you enjoyed it, buddy. I enjoyed it too. I had a good time. It was like a party in my mouth. Ooh la la. Okay, last tag call. Please like, subscribe, and share. Hit the buttons until they can't do anything anymore. And if you want to support the ministry, paypal.me/Jake Johnson Band and help me keep bringing this to you because I got a whole lot in store but it ain't something I can do without eating. So keep that in mind, and I'll see you guys on Monday. And I got something special for you guys on Monday, so tune in for that. I'm gonna do something you ain't never seen before, or at least never seen me do. It's gonna be like magic, only better, musically. I love you guys. God bless you. Say your prayers, and we'll see you Monday. Have a great night.